Okay, students. So this week we're going to talk about the independent and dependent variables. So a lot of it is going to be analyzing what's just with words, not actual like math. So let's start by figuring out what's the independent variable, what's the dependent variable. So right here, so look at this. So this is the cause and this is the effect. So the dependent variable depends on the independent variable. So when you see X and Y, this will be, we use X and Y here. So you can think about that way. Think about it that way. So it is a variable that stands alone and isn't changed by the other variables you're trying to measure. What is the dependent variable? It's something that depends on other factors. So this one will probably depend on this one, right? Or multiple factors. The dependent variable causes a change in the dependent variable, or the dependent variable depends on or is affected by the independent variable. So there is an example here. It says time spent studying, it's in the independent variable, causes a change in the test score. So if you study more, your score is going to be better. So your test score depends on your time spent studying. That was a pretty good one. So that's what pretty much we're going to do here. So let's do some examples. All right. So it says, label each of the variables as independent or dependent variables. So Tamara's daughter is a dancer who will be participating in an upcoming recital. For each dance her daughter plans to perform, she will require a different costume. All right, so we need to think about the big picture. So what depends on what? So C equals the number of costumes Tamara's daughter will require, and D equals the number of dances Tamara's daughter plans to perform. So it depends. So how many costumes she requires depends on how many dances she will perform. So this one would be the independent variable. And this one is the dependent variable. Okay? All right. So let's look at another one. Yardina is planning her wedding. The number of announcements she orders is determined by the number of guests she wants to invite. So what is independent of what? Well, the number of guests and the number of announcements. So it depends how many numbers of guests come, well, the other way around. So it says, the number of announcements she orders is determined by the number of guests she wants to invite. So this one would depend on this one, right? So this is the dependent variable. And this is the independent. I'm just going to write independent here. Okay. All right. So next one. Spender goes biking every morning. The farther he bikes, the farther he bikes, the more calories he burns. So that's it right here. The farther away he bikes, the more calories. So the calories are dependent on how far he goes. So the distance is the number of calories is the dependent of the distance. So this is dependent and this is independent. So the total distance is going to be the independent variable. So in the case of this will be X and this is Y, right? So think about your Y equals MX plus B. So this one right here is the independent variable. And this one right here is the dependent variable. Okay? All right. So a committee is organizing a music festival in Jefferson County. The amount of time that the venue has been reserved for determines the number of bands that will be able to play at the festival. So the amount of time that the venue has been reserved for, the number of bands that will be able to play. So it would be, this one would be dependent on this one, right? Because it depends how much time you got, how many bands you can play. So this is the dependent and this is the independent. So that's all we're doing here. Okay, identifying the independent and dependent variable. Carson is selling lemonade. the number of cups of lemonade he sells determines how much money he earns. So the total money he earns is definitely going to be dependent of how many cups he sells. So this is the independent, and this is the dependent. Okay. All right. So during the winter, a trucking company ships products from California. I'm like reading 10,000 things at a time. So during the winter, a trucking company ships products from California to Cleveland. The more products the company needs to ship, the more truckers it will hire. So that's it. They're telling you which one is dependent on which. So the number of truckers the company will hire depends on the amount of products the company. So dependent and independent. All right, so that's how you do it here. Now let's look at it in like a little diagram here. All right, so it says a florist wants to see if the amount of product X will extend the life of cut flowers so that they last longer. So the independent variable, this is my X, and the dependent variable would be my Y. So 0, 0.20, all this is what? The product X, right? Will depend on how much the flowers will stay longer, basically. So the independent will be my X, and my dependent will be my Y. So when it's 0, 2, that would be 2. When it's 3, when it's 0, 4, that would be 5. So notice that it's a linear function, right? 0, 6, that would be 7. It's 0.8, that would be 8, right here. And then 1, that would be 10. So there you go, my line. And then 0, 2, right? 0. Okay, so then, so that would be my function here. So this is the deal. Oh, I messed up. This one goes here and this one goes here. So there we go. That would be my function here. It doesn't look like it's a straight line though. It kind of looks like a curve here. But anyways, that's how it goes. So this is a function. And then it shows what's the independent and the dependent variable. Okay. All right. So that's it. I hope this helps.